If you believe everyone, no matter where they live, deserve a place to call home, you're not alone. On Housing for Good, host Chris Goodson and Carolyn Moore explore housing solutions from McPherson to communities across Kansas and beyond. We bring you stories and insights from housing experts, policymakers, and people who are making a real impact. Join the conversation. Listen wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeart, and more, because housing isn't just local, it's universal.
Welcome to Housing for Good, a podcast dedicated to housing topics and issues affecting our communities in McPherson County and beyond. With years of experience and expertise, hosts Chris Goodson and Carolyn Moore discuss housing challenges and opportunities with other experts from a variety of housing fields.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Housing for Good. I'm Chris, and Carolyn's on vacation. I hope she's having a great time while I'm here all by myself. Usually, Carolyn and I talk about the news. Today, we have Brush Up Mac. So I want to remind everybody in our community that April the 18th, we will be having Brush Up Mac going throughout the county and helping people with small home repairs. We build wheelchair ramps. We do small painting projects, all kinds of fun stuff. If you want to sign up to either be a volunteer or maybe you need some help, let us know by March 20th. That would be really great. You can go on our website and get that information at McPhersonHousingCoalition.org, call our office, go to the senior center. There's lots of different places, but don't forget about Brush Up Mac. If you work for an industry, we'd love to see you this year. I mean, Pfizer helps us, and we have some other industries that come in every year and help us with this project. So again, don't forget about Brush Up Mac. I know if I forget about it, Carolyn will not be happy with me. So there is our little commercial for that. So today I'm really excited. We're going to have somebody from the city of Salina. She is the director of Community Relations Division. And I will let her introduce herself and tell us a little bit about what she does.
I'm Michelle Martin. I'm with the city of Salina. I'm the Community Relations Supervisor. Community Relations is a division under Community and Development Services. Years ago it was its own, but we're our own little division within a bigger department. My role as Community Relations Supervisor is to oversee what are civil rights. I call it our little civil rights office. So anyone has a housing complaint and thinks they're being discriminated against, or employment, or a public accommodation, which are businesses open to the public. Mm-hmm. A lot of it's parking issues. But that's all within our division to investigate those kinds of complaints within the city of Salina.
Oh, I didn't even, so I'm always surprised whenever we have it's like, what are we doing today? Oh, this is what we're doing. Wow, that is such an important job.
And then we have some other add-on roles is what I like to call. That's why we were started to be that, but it evolves with time, right? You were telling me your role evolves, our role has evolved.
Yes.
So I'm also the ADA coordinator, which kind of ties in. It goes into the civil rights area, but then I'm for the city of Salina. So I serve in that role. If you have a concern with any accommodations that the city's providing and any of their services, and I'm the first point of contact to try and resolve those issues. And then we also have developed into the homelessness office that kind of handles the run point for the city on the homelessness, addressing how we're addressing homelessness, what we're doing. And then we also have a grant that we're doing for housing rehab.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it kind of ties into housing in a lot of different ways, but the office was originally created as kind of the civil rights office for the city. We actually have it in our city code, very detailed, and we have a contract with HUD. There are only 2 of us in the state of Kansas that are what they call a FAP, which is a Fair Housing Assistance Program. So we contract with HUD. We act as HUD for housing investigations.
I've never heard of this before. This is a brand new thing for me. I'm like, wow, why does every city in the state of Kansas, 105 counties and however many cities, should have somebody in your role, or even as a county-wide one, right? Maybe you have one for McPherson County, but what an important thing, because I think that often gets overlooked.
Yeah.
Fair housing. I was just talking to somebody today, and their house is they're renting and their house is being put up for sale.
Oh.
And so the new person is like, well, I can just give you 30 days and you have to get out. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Don't they have a lease till July? How is that even going to fly?
And that is where I get a little bit, because I'm also an attorney by background, so I know some of these things that I know or familiar with, but our role is very limited to only doing discrimination cases. So we do make a lot of referrals and connect people with other resources. That would be what we call a landlord-tenant issue.
Yeah.
Because it's by contract. It's not discrimination based on race, color, or the 7 protected classes.
Yeah.
Race, color, religion, gender, what am I missing? National origin. Well, I always miss a couple when I'm trying to think of them off the top of my head. But there are 7 protected classes. Disability, that was a later add one. But all of those, that's what we do. So if it's something that's a landlord-tenant issue or a contract, we have to refer them to Kansas Legal Services or a self-help. We work to develop a self-help center on the top of our top floor in our building by the courts. So there is a self-help center. It's not as manned as some of the others in the state, but we're working on it. I've been working with the courts and our court administrator to try and get something going up there a little more, but they do have a computer dedicated now. We're working. There's no, Kansas Legal Services has some time they dedicate for walk-ins there that they're trying to do and get that going, but it's
wow.
Yeah.
That's important. So let me back up a little bit. What are the biggest housing challenges that you see in Salina right now based on the position that you have? What are you seeing?
Well, for me, it kind of competes between affordable housing and homelessness, probably, and they are related. I think homelessness is a housing problem, like Greg Colburn.
100%.
Because it flows downhill, right? Like whenever you have someone with the lowest amount of resources, I mean, someone at $1 million can buy any house level, right? Someone who can buy $1 million house can buy a $900,000, and the people that can only afford that, there are fewer on the market. So affordable housing is probably the biggest issue. And Salina, before I started in the role a few years ago, they had worked on a Live Salina plan, what they call a Live Salina plan, and that is all about housing. And so we've been really working on certain levels of housing. They've built, and I can't tell you how many. My boss, Warren Driscoll, who runs the department, my supervisor, she has been integral in how many housing units, new units they've built. Now we're trying to work on the infill part. That's what our grant is, keeping the houses that from going into disrepair so they have to be condemned, keeping them in the market. That's what our grants, our housing rehab grants are designed to do.
I wonder if that's a CBDG. Is that a CBDG grant?
We have a CDBG and Federal Home Loan Bank. We have both.
So CBDG, for those listening out there and saying, okay, stop using acronyms. It's a community development block grant, and it helps cities with housing issues. I know McPherson's had one, Inman has had one, Salina obviously has one. And that is Lindsborg's trying to get one, which I'm hoping they have enough applications. But that's a great grant because it allows people to do some rehabilitation even on rental properties, and makes it so much more affordable for them. So I'm happy about that you're seeing the importance of that. Is this your first time with that?
My first time personally. It's not the city's first time. I think before they had that CDBG grant, I looked it up. It was maybe 15, 20 years ago. I can't, it's a long-standing grant that's run through the federal program, and then they run it through the states. And so it's been around a long time, but we had not done it for home rehab, I want to say 15, 20 years before this, and it's my first time.
Do you support tenants, landlords, and housing providers? Is that something that you help if even if a landlord were to come in and say, hey, I'm having this issue?
Yes.
Is that something that you do?
Well, we have our resources for them, and we try to get them to the resources. We have some forms in our office. We're using the Kansas Judicial Council's forms. They're not our own forms. Like they come in and say, can you give me a notice to evict and notice forms and all that. So when we get those types of questions, we refer them, and we used to always have them available to print, but they get outdated and stuff. We try and refer them where they can go. And now we have the self-help center upstairs. So
which I love.
Yeah, we're trying to get
I really love that. So how do you think Salina compares to other communities when you're talking about all these housing things that are going on? In my mind, you're way advanced as compared to some of these other cities with just the fair housing that you're doing and the discrimination and a place for somebody to go. I could tell you a million stories of things that I've seen, and where are you supposed to go?
Yeah, I feel like we're ahead of some, but of course I'm biased a little bit. I mean, that's hard not to feel a little biased. But I think we do have a good network in Salina that we've really been working to build those resources up. I mean, we can't solve everyone's problem. That's always the hardest thing. And the city has a different role than a nonprofit. Before I came to the city, I worked in a nonprofit, so I kind of know that side of things, which has been helpful on the grants. But the city's role is different, and trying to stay in your lane and what your role is and what you can do to help. But I do think we've worked hard to try and have good networking and resources, but still there are gaps. There are always gaps, what you see, and then there's never enough time or money.
That's the truth for everybody.
Especially in this world.
Especially in the things that we do. So looking at fair housing and community education, I think that's really important. So we have listeners out there. Maybe they don't even know what fair housing is. Can you give us a quick definition of what is fair housing?
Sure. I can't give you a quick definition because it's really broader than people think. I thought when I first started, most people think of tenants and landlords, but the Fair Housing Act is huge. It covers things like lending, fair housing and lending. It covers fair housing in dorms. It applies to your own home, not just landlord-tenant is what everyone thinks. So homeowners associations, there have been fair housing cases when landlord or homeowners associations have discriminated against individuals. And so it's a really broad covering act. The other thing is that I find interesting with my dual role is it actually was enacted before the ADA. So disability protections for people in their home was actually before the ADA was enacted in 1990. Wow. And most people don't realize that. So fair housing actually protects all of, offers assistance and protections beyond even what the ADA does. They get confused a lot, and there is some overlap, and it can always be hard, like you always have to start is where is this event happening, which role, which act applies. It's always it takes some discernment, but they do a lot of the same things. It's intended to make sure people with disabilities aren't discriminated against. And so what's the biggest issue you see? You get a lot of complaints. What's the number one thing that people are telling you? Well, the number one complaint we had when I first started, and it's settled down a little bit, but I still think it's the number one complaint, is ESAs. People complain, they don't, and I think it was a big change in how, and because of the way those two acts interact with each other. So you're talking about the ESAs. Okay, tell our audience what that is. Emotional support animals. Oh, yes. We just had a situation like that ourselves. The number one complaint, and I do think a lot of it is education. Like we try to not approach it as we're in there to get someone. And like I tell individuals, you can file a complaint with us. We're not like an attorney acting on your behalf. Our goal is to correct behavior and to give people the opportunity and educate. And I do think there's so much confusion about the difference between an ESA and a service animal and a pet, and a lot of it is unintentional. Yeah. And the way HUD interprets it, which I have to follow the way HUD interprets because I have that agreement, so I'm going to follow HUD's interpretation of the ESA. So an ESA is different than a service animal. A service animal is one that is trained to do something specific to assist someone with a disability. And an ESA has more, I don't want to say protections, but it can be used more places. You have more rights to have a service animal in public places and to go with you than an ESA. Something that's an ESA is an emotional support animal. It's not necessarily trained to do something for you like a service animal is. Right. So, but in your home, you want more comfort. You have more rights to have comfort. So it's a broader category. There are more animals recognized as an ESA. It's not just a dog or miniature horse. Oh, I know. I've seen some things. I'm like, they try to bring a turkey or something on an airplane because that's my emotional support animal. And I haven't even looked. There's a whole nother set of laws that apply to airplanes. And I haven't had to deal with that, so I'm not an expert on that. Yeah. But it is so confusing to everyone. And so I think there's a lot of unintentional. We don't start with the assumption. Now, if you're a landlord and I've seen you 3 or 4 times for the same issue, I'm going to start making some assumptions.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I start with the assumption that landlords need some education too.
Right.
And even individuals don't know the difference between us.
Yeah.
We do a whole session on.
I mean, that's so good, because
on
I know
ESAs.
on the part of the landlord too, if they can show that it's a difficulty and the reason that they cannot have it, I think there's some protection there for the person that owns it, depending on the situation. If it's an over.
Now, that one is a little more difficult. I wouldn't necessarily say you can say if it's a difficulty on a lot of the accommodations for landlords and under the Fair Housing Act, yes. But ESAs, they don't really say. What it is the animal has to be well behaved. If the animal is causing problems and you're not picking up the poop after it or cleaning up after it or doing stuff, or it attacks someone, that is when, and that's what I'm talking.
And that's what I'm talking about.
So the landlord has that. They can't say, oh, it's too expensive that you have that.
No. But if it puts a hardship on them because they're not picking up, because it's an aggressive animal, because it's tearing stuff. I mean, at that point, you have some.
There's some ways you can work
protection.
through. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this fair housing seminar that you're putting on. This sounds like a great deal. We have McPherson Housing Coalition has our housing conference. It's usually in September. I don't remember the date this year, but we always are looking for somebody to come and talk about fair housing, because we have tons of people that are landlords and they're always trying to stay up on it. It changes constantly, these laws and rules, and next thing I'm supposed to do this or that. And trying to keep track of that is like,
Yeah. It is. So our fair housing seminar, as part of our agreement with HUD, we have to do awareness and outreach. So years ago, I tried to look up when they started this. It's at least 15 years they've been doing it, but I can't remember. It was before me. I've only been there 4 years, going on 5. They've been doing it for a long time. They've had this agreement with HUD for quite a while. And so Salina's done it. April's Fair Housing Month. So we've always, as part of our outreach under the HUD agreement, we've done a fair housing seminar. Since I've been doing it, it's a full day seminar. I think there are other times it may have just been partial day, but we try to have certifications for attorneys because there's some overlap there. Landlords or realtors, there's a realtor certification, and then for social workers. So we try and get all 3 certifications. Sometimes it can be a little challenging, but we have speakers throughout the day and try and cover different topics. And even though fair housing, what people think of in the act and what I think of when I say that now, and the discrimination, there's so much overlap with landlord-tenant issues and contracts and stuff that we usually have at least one session that deals with what we call the Kansas Residential Landlord-Tenant Act or landlord-tenant issues. So we have at least one speaker on that this year. Then we cover some other things, like the sexual harassment's always been a big thing. I know ESAs, we usually do, if we go back and forth. Those are 2 of the bigger issues. So the sexual harassment and VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act has some overlap with protections for individuals who qualify as a woman who's had violence. There's some different rules that apply to them and extra protections. So we usually have a great speaker. Her name's Michelle too. Her name is Michelle Ewert, Professor Michelle Ewert from Washburn, and she's been so gracious every year. She comes and
does an attorney? That sounds like a...
Yeah, she's a law professor, actually, attorney and law professor at Washburn.
Okay.
And she usually goes back and forth. We don't do the same one every year, but she does an excellent job on the Violence Against Women Act, and sexual harassment is one session. I think that's what she's doing this year. And then sometimes she'll do the ESA one.
So tell us, who should attend this? Landlords, tenants, anybody that's interested in this?
Anyone who wants to learn about it. And it's only $30. We charge $30. That includes your meal. It's an all-day event. I think we start registration at 8:30. And then I can't remember for sure. I think it's at 8:30 that the doors open.
Yeah, it says 4:30 on the flyer that I have here.
Until 4:30 at the end.
And it's, according to the flyer, it's Friday, April the 24th.
Correct.
So just put that on your calendar. If you're a landlord out there and you live within 30 miles to an hour of Salina, what a great seminar to attend for only $30.
Yes.
If there's resources out there that we can get people to, that's the awesome part, right? Being able to provide something and it's only like, I go to Salina all the time. I'm a real estate appraiser as well as the Housing Coalition. So I love Salina, by the way. We do a lot of shopping there. We eat out a lot there. I praise lots of property there. I really love Salina. So I'm not moving there. McPherson's still my place. But I do love that Salina's so close and handy for the things that I need. So it does say this year your key topics include fair housing and case law updates, which I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Housing choice vouchers, which is a big one.
Yes.
I wish that our choice vouchers and housing vouchers were closer than 2 hours away, but unfortunately that's where our people have to go to get those vouchers.
Wow.
That's another whole conversation. We could have a whole
thing.
podcast on that mess.
And as much as I know about HUD, I feel like this is an area I don't know that much about. I feel like it's kind of a mystery. Few people have real expertise on it. So this year, our person is coming from Douglas County, and I've met with them before. Their housing authority there. They have some great people. So we're lucky to have them. I think we'll have some good expertise. I'm learning constantly about that. I feel like the Housing Choice Voucher Program, I know minuscule. I know this much, and it's so much more. I'm excited for that one.
So I have here, register online at, there is a QR code, obviously.
Yes.
You can't see that from here, but, or you can go to salina-ks.gov/fair housing seminar. Is that right?
Correct.
Or they can call 785-309-5745. Correct. Okay. And lunch is provided. So I get a great seminar. I get lunch, and it's only going to cost me $30.
Yes, and you get to see us.
And you get to see you guys. How great is that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the...
And it's at the OCCK Training Center. If you've never been there, they have a great facility, and it's very accommodating. We used to do it at TPEC, but OCCK's opened their doors and been very gracious to allow us to do it there, and it's a nice facility.
And that is 1710 West Schilling Road, so that... Is that by
Correct.
the air?
Yeah, it's close to the airport.
Is it close to the airport?
It's not right by it, but it's out in that general vicinity.
Okay, so we talked about that. Now we're going to look at collaboration and solutions. How does the City of Salina work with nonprofits, housing providers, and service agencies? Do you coordinate those things at all, services? Or?
Well, in those other duties as assigned hat that we kind of the way things grow out of it.
The way everybody has that at their job?
Yeah. As we've started running the Emergency Solutions Grant, it was actually a person that had run it at the city for quite a few years. So the city serves as the recipient from the state and then gives the money to agencies doing the work.
So you have a sub-recipient.
Yes, they have. They're the sub-subs. We're the sub, they're the sub-subs, or the agencies.
Okay.
Because we're the sub-recipient from the state. So the city applies and gets all, so we coordinate that. That has come to our office because the lady that used to do it retired. And so that ended up in our area. I used to apply for it when I worked at a nonprofit. So I had some familiarity. And so that's how I think it kind of ended up going our way. So we do work with the agencies that are providing that, and ends up, they do great work in helping with the homeless. Then the city just recently, homelessness I think has been everywhere, and affordable housing, the way it all connects. We started and we've contracted with someone to help us do a study and to come up with a housing plan, a strategic plan that we can incorporate hopefully into our Live Salina overall housing plan, like a piece of this connection to it. So we're working on that.
So is it a housing study specifically?
Yeah, we're calling it the homelessness housing strategic plan.
Oh, so that's different. We have a housing study that we had done countywide for everybody, but the homelessness wasn't necessarily
part
a
of
piece
it.
of that. It just talked about the cost of how many people in McPherson County are struggling paying rent. It was like a very high number.
Well, we're just under.
Very high number.
We just started it. We just have approval and started February 1st working on the first steps with this consultant to do a strategic plan to address homelessness. And to us, it really ties into the housing plan eventually.
Totally. It's totally connected. Yeah, that's awesome. That's really good.
So that's how the city's been involved, I guess, and how we've been involved is working through that process of hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have a good recommendation and a plan and idea. But as part of that, we are also part of the COC,
as we are.
The continuum of care. So the city has, with that ESG lead and everything else, and I ended up being on part of the steering committee, the COC statewide steering committee, and serving on several of those committees. So I guess that's the other way we partner a lot with individuals and agencies and working through that. and trying to help them. I mean, I see our role as trying to facilitate how do we get them funding, because they're the ones doing the work,
Right.
not me.
And you have a lot of providers up there. We've had several of them on our show.
Yeah. I heard the one with the Ashby House.
Yeah, the Ashby House was here, and then you have a men's shelter downtown.
Salina
Rescue Mission has been on our podcast, and so we're looking at, we don't have quite as many partners here when it comes to homelessness as you have in Salina. So that's a great way if you could coordinate all of those different services, because what I find is sometimes I just tell people, stay in your own lane. You know, I'm willing to partner with you. I don't want to do what you're doing, and I don't want you to come over here and try to step in the middle of what I'm trying to do, because then we're duplicating and it's not working and the flow is questionable. So it's great that you have someone to kind of help coordinate that a little bit so it's working a lot smoother. And
we hope that's the ultimate goal. I think a plan is what we kind of need, so that we kind of have that vision, that shared vision, and hopefully everyone buys into that vision. That's what we're hoping is that comes of it, because there's never enough time or money. So if we can use our resources more efficiently and not have duplication, that's the ultimate goal for us.
Yeah.
So
I'm working on my doctorate in strategic leadership, so it's always really fun for me to hear. So someday when I'm getting ready to do that dissertation, I'll be calling you going, hey, how did you do this again? I want to know about this part of it, because I'm trying to write this part of my paper and I can't figure it out. But it's really fun for me personally to hear about this, to see how strategically you are doing that. And it sounds like Salina's, when it comes to this part of it, fair housing is doing a great job.
Well, we like to think so.
Yeah,
but
I'm like, wow, I wish we had that or this or.
Well, I'm always thinking, I wish I know one of our gaps, and that's one of the big things, is to have the strategic plan develop where are your gaps, like what do you need and where you want to do that. And I see one of our gaps is a lot of what you have with what you guys are doing with your housing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's awesome.
I feel like that's a piece we're missing.
Yeah. And we do the same thing. I was telling you earlier when we're going to have a conversation after our podcast to talk about different things that we're both doing. We look constantly for ways that we can help our families who are getting stabilized. Yeah. And one of them that we're finding is it's kind of difficult for a family with a child in education to know how to get that IEP or that 504. And what does that look like? So we're not going to talk about that now, but we're going to say that when our families are struggling to get the education that their children need, that's a frustration.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of times what happens is people are so worried about where I'm going to live and where I'm going to sleep. That kind of stuff falls through the crack, but it affects the kid for the rest of their lives.
Sure.
And so like you, we're always looking, who's our partner and how do we fix the situation so that whatever person is being affected by it we can get it figured out, right?
Yeah,
in a nice way.
It's a network of resources.
Yes, and that's the secret of this whole thing is networking and having the resources that you need.
I'm going to show my age here a little bit, but I remember before when it was SRS and not DCF, before privatization.
Yes.
I am not a fan. I'm going on podcast saying I'm not a fan of privatization because I remember asking someone, because I had stepped away from that world at one time and was home with the kids for a while. And when I came back, I was like, oh, good grief. And I had done some other things, so it wasn't just that. But I hadn't been in this world of social services for some time. And I remember coming back into it going, oh, my gosh, I have 7 years of higher education, and I can't figure out how to network and how to do this stuff and how do we do this. Where's the day like it used to be back in SRS days?
Right.
You went to SRS and they could help you sort this out. Now people who are already struggling have to find ways and to network and to do all this. And it's a full-time job.
And it's ridiculous.
It's just like keeping up with a resource manual. Like we try and do one at college. It's a full-time job, and they're always changing, and there's always something you don't know because there's no. I just sometimes wish the SRS was back the way it was and it was all centralized so you could send someone to one place. And Salina, Community Resource Center, which our rescue mission is the subsidiary of that, the Salina Grace. I don't know if you've talked to them, but they, we try and have some sort of resource center, but then it's still so fragmented. It's just really hard. And I, if you already are struggling with economics, transportation, housing, just trying to get a network built is really hard.
We've talked about that for years. We've tried to do it a couple times, and we could never get the other partners to buy into it. Everybody wants to do their own thing. However, we're planning on building a clubhouse at the Oak Harbor Cottages,
Ooh.
and that will be not only a place for the families that live there to have little birthday parties and maybe after-school tutoring, but also have the information that people are going to need so they go to one place to figure out, how do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do that? And so they're not running around like chickens with their heads cut off.
Sure.
Having a small food pantry there, which we already have a food pantry, but having one there that's maybe somebody just needs a meal for the evening. Just a simple place that people can go to one spot. They know where we are, and then make it so much simpler for our families to get back on their feet and get where they need to go.
That's awesome. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
See, I think you guys have great ideas. And you're doing great things too.
Thank you. All right, so future and call to action. What housing initiatives or improvements are you hoping to see in Salina? What are you wishing could happen over there?
Well, I'm wanting to find the gaps in our homelessness thing. And one of the biggest, we had talked a little bit about what's the biggest problem. And what I see is the lack of affordable housing, the lack of a place to go. Like we have them and we get people in shelters. We have the good shelter network. But then what's the next step? How do we move them from shelter to housed? And so that supportive housing type like you guys have and what you guys are creating, that's we'll see what what the consultants say if they see that as our biggest gap. But in my humble opinion, that's kind of the gap I see. We don't have enough of those next steps or transitional type, whatever you want to call them. It's
true. HUD calls it supportive housing, and now they're not thinking it's a good thing, and we think it's a great thing, and we have
transitional, supportive, whatever. Just those next steps outside of a shelter.
Yeah, I mean, when we have a 70 to 80%, it's almost 80% success rate with all of our programs. That says something.
Yeah,
because that's not typical of this work that we all do, and so it's like we're doing something that obviously it's working. But we're always open to change. What has to change? What can we do different? We're not rigid, and there's certain rules we've had to put in place for certain reasons because somebody always has to ruin it for everybody else, right?
Yeah.
But So what else? What have we forgotten about? Is there something else you wanted to talk about with the seminar, fair housing, how somebody can reach you? What am I missing here?
Well, the one thing I would like to mention is we do have a few openings left on this grant. Like if someone in Salina, and they have to be in Salina, wants to apply for some rehab, it is low income. I didn't bring the numbers with me, and I don't have them there, but they're on our website, what income level it would have to be. But we have a few openings left, and so I can't guarantee anything, but if someone's interested in applying for housing rehab, or at least having a conversation with our office or going online and looking at the form at that same website, it would just be salinaks.org, community relations, housing rehab. You can put in any of those and you should be able to get to it, or call our office and see and have an inquiry. But that's one thing I do want to make sure people know we have that available. We still have a few openings left for this grant, where our hope is that we can get some processes and get it going and do it again. This, we aren't one and done. It's such
a good program.
Right now, we don't want, we're kind of at capacity of what we can handle. But when it's done, we hope to have the next one ready to roll.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on our podcast. This was a great interview. Yeah. I learned something new every single time that we talk to somebody new. And if you would be interested or know someone who would be interested in being on Housing for Good, drop us a line. Please leave a review. Please let us know how we're doing at Housing for Good at McPhersonHC.org. And thank you for listening to Housing for Good, and have a great day.